A very good morning to you, wherever you and welcome back to the program Good Morning Kenya. If you're just joining us on this 20th day of September, the year 2017, a day when we expect that detailed Supreme Court ruling regarding the nullification of the August 8th presidential election and the reasoning behind it. And that discussion will be coming in a few minutes to come. But in the meantime, we want to talk about food security especially, and what the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations have been or has been up to in terms of ensuring we are food secure. Just the other day, a number of counties, millions of Kenyans have been facing food starvation, and some do even today. So what is it as a country that we're getting right? What is it that we are not getting right? And the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is celebrating 40 years of existence in this country. And if it was a human being, I'll say for them, life is just beginning, because life begins at 40, so they say. In studio with me is the representative of FAO in the country, that is Gabriel Rugaleme. I like Rugaleme. Karibu sana to the program, sir.
Asante sana.
Hope you are well.
Martin.
Yes. And let's just begin by way of introduction, what the mandate of FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization, is, and especially your mission to Kenya and other countries.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. The mandate of the FAO is basically to assist member countries, governments like Kenya, to bring about food security for its people. And so when I say food security, means that food is available and the food is accessible to those who need it. So to achieve this, we do a lot of things, including boosting production, management of natural resources, and the livestock and the other areas. But the end game and the aim is to make sure that countries have are food secure. Yeah.
And so tomorrow you'll be marking your 40th anniversary.
Yes.
And this will be happening at Gigiri, I want to believe.
Yes, at the UN complex.
40 years down the line, and you're talking about boosting production, and Kenya is still facing food insecurity. What is it that you can point out and say, listen, for the time we have been in Kenya, this is what you have done to ensure that Kenyans are food secure? Because that remains a problem even today.
Yes, we have done very many things for which FAO and Kenya should be proud about. I think I will take around three themes. One is that FAO has contributed in the building of a strong agriculture institutes. We have contributed in the building and the strengthening of the Dairy Research Institute and the Dairy Training Institute in Naivasha. I think you know them. We have contributed in the building of the Meat Institute, Meat Training Institute at Thika. And all those have gone to become centers of excellence in their own right. They are still there. They are still working. We believe that building institutions is very, very important for any development in agriculture. That is one. Two, we have trained hundreds of thousands of Kenyan agricultural workers, whether it be extension, researchers, and agricultural managers, to make sure that they continue providing for extension. Others have been short-term training. Others have been really long-term training. I'm proud that some of the Kenyans got their PhDs or masters because of FAO sponsorship. Third, we work at community level. And the FAO has been instrumental in working with farmers, thousands of, probably I should say millions of farmers, in trying to make sure that we train them, we equip them with modern skills to make sure that they can boost their production. Let me give a quick example. This lady, farmer called Joyce, who is in Kakamega, in 2013, she established a fish farm. But by 2014, it was going to the dogs. So FAO arrived there with this fish farming project. She joined it. She was trained. She was supported. Today, Joyce is a big fish farmer in Kakamega. She's employing 7 other people. She's food secure. So FAO has worked with women and men of Kenya, hundreds of thousands of them, to make sure that they increase their agricultural production. However, I agree with you that Kenya is not yet food secure, and I'm sure we'll come to that question later in the interview.
Yeah, in a short while.
Yeah.
But I was just trying to imagine, when you talk about Jane in Kakamega County,
Yes.
there are so many people like Jen who will want that privilege of working with FAO or FAO,
Yes.
as you refer to it, and they are in other parts of the country. So how did you settle on Jane? How did you identify her? Or people who are in such a position like Jen, what can they do so that they also benefit just like Jen did in Kakamega?
I have used Jane as
a case study of some sort.
As an example.
Yes.
But you know, FAO is squarely behind government in supporting devolution. So for many, many years we operated only from our office in Nairobi. Today we have 17 county offices in most parts of Kenya to make sure that our support is closer to the people we need to work with. And we are continuing to expand the program and hoping that one day we will probably be in 47 of the counties. So FAO, being an intergovernmental body, is based on the rule and principle of equality. We need to support every Kenyan because every Kenyan owns FAO, and we have to be accountable to everybody. So resources, of course, come in and make us work the way we work, in the sense that we can't reach everybody at the same time, but it's our ambition to try and reach everybody when we can.
So the 47 counties, in how many counties are you in operating?
Around 20 counties. Yeah,
So 27
at the moment.
to go.
Yeah, 27 to go. A long journey, but we are ambitious. With the resources, we hope we can reach every county.
So when you talk about Jen, using her as an example, which kind of support do you give to such when you are working with community?
Yeah.
For example, for the case of Jen, did you buy or perhaps dig the fish pond, if it was the fish pond, or do you buy the fishlings or whatever they are called? Which kind of support? Is it money do you give them? Do you give them money in kind? For example, you gave her 2 million. I'm just trying to imagine.
Yeah.
Or which kind of support do you extend to them?
Let me say we use this methodology. It's called train, organize, and link. First of all, FAO is not a donor agency, it's a technical support agency.
Yes.
So our biggest energy and effort and skill is in training people. Training them to understand how to farm better, where to get inputs, how to apply the inputs in order to increase production, whether it's livestock, whether it's crops or it's fisheries. That's one. So the training is the biggest component. I think as I speak, this year we already have reached 100,000 people in training alone. So as we train, we also organize them, because if they continue to produce as a single farmer, it's very difficult to produce enough for the market or to even reach the market. So we organize them in producer groups or farmer-based organizations, or we strengthen the groups that are there. And then once we have done that, we link them to the market. For example, in Makueni, Kitui, and the other places where we are working with the farmers who are producing pulses, last year we connected them to an external market worth of $30 million US. So it is, during the training, of course you have to train them how to use inputs and how to apply them on timely basis. Sometimes, yes, we buy those inputs, we bring them on a demonstration site, we show them how to use them. But it is not our responsibility, nor that we intend to be providing goodies for free, because also our belief is that agriculture should be an enterprise, a private enterprise that you run in order to make money. If you start giving free goodies, you are really going against the grain, isn't it?
You're going against the grain.
Yeah.
I like the mantra, your mantra, especially when you talk about train, organize, and link. And so let's use Kakamega, for example, because that's where you cited. or even Makueni that you have also cited. And I'm just trying to imagine that if you go to Makueni today, we have a number of groups that deal with farming. And when you talk about training, shed more light in terms of modalities. That how do you identify those groups? The manual in terms of training, because I'm expecting that when we are talking about farming, more likely we should be talking about language barrier. And then before you even think of linking them to the market, how do you go about it?
The training method we use is mostly called the farmer field schools. Yeah. So we don't take farmers to a school and say and get a check and say, yeah, 1 plus 1 is equal to 5, or 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. What we do is we use farmers field school. This is a method actually developed by FAO in the 80s and introduced in Kenya in the early 1990s. Is a school without walls, as we call it, where farmers sit in a farm or in a farmer's farm plot or under a tree and learn from a resource person, but also interact and contribute themselves. I mean, farmers have been farming for thousands of years. I mean, any farmer has been farming for many, many years. They know their environment, they know the pests they face, they know many other challenges. So it's you sit down under the trees and say, okay, you told me you have this problem. This is how we can help sort it out, but also tell me how can you sort it out. But we found that this kind of training is very good in many ways, not only in boosting production, but also enhancing social cohesion. You are bringing people who normally probably they are neighbors, but they don't work together, and you bring them together and they get to know one another beyond the habari ya asubuhi bwana, you know? And in other countries where we have applied it, even in a post-conflict situation, it has really helped reduce community tensions. So we use farmer field schools, we use demonstration. Farmers have to learn by doing. Yes.
And so you call them classes without walls.
Yeah, schools without walls.
Schools
Farmer
without
field
walls.
schools.
Farmer field schools.
Yeah.
But then the question of identification, that how do you narrow down and say these are the group of farmers we want to train? Is it that you have some link persons on the ground?
Yes, Martin. When we go to a community, first of all, we will have discussed with the government. Government, we have this money, we sign a funding agreement. Then we go to a county government and discuss, because everything we do is partnership. As I said, the FAO has no mandate to do anything here except with the leadership and guidance of the government of the day. So we go to the county government, we discuss, and they tell us, oh, okay, we have a big problem in this part of the county where we want support in increasing food security or boosting irrigation or something like that. And then we look at our project proposal and we say, okay, we can go there. So we go there. Often we use local people as trainers. We train them as a training of trainers until they are at a level we can trust, and then we supervise them. We can't do everything. Sometimes we use NGOs and other civil society organizations who have the skills and they know the area very well. So development must be contextualized. So to use the people who knows the local context for us is really very important. Yeah.
Israel is one of the countries that has been widely cited, and especially because it has been successful in terms of doing irrigation and in terms of, improving the food production, notwithstanding that that is more of a drought-prone country just by its very nature. In your programs, how do you operate? Do you give northern parts of the country, for example, do you have special programs for counties, for example, like Northeast and I'm talking about Garissa, for example, we're talking about Mandera, Marsabit. Do you have a special program? Because there are those who argue that if you look at those kind of counties, they have a potential, but we seem to have a lot of idle land in those areas. Does FAO, for example, have a special program for them?
Yeah, I mean, you also touch on a very long history of FAO. Probably you know the the scheme, irrigation scheme called the TISA, Turkey Well Irrigation Scheme Association, that was started by the independent government of Kenya around 1964. And the FAO was called in to provide technical assistance. The scheme is still going on. So you can see that since nearly time immemorial, we have been involved there. Recently, we have been involved in Marsabit, in Turkana, Wajir, and others, mainly in drought response, in providing water, providing feed, and providing feed supplements so that we can save some livestock to enable farmers regain their livelihoods immediately after the drought. We have not invested so much in irrigation, but I'm convinced that the first step to make sure that we eliminate hunger in the dry areas is first to deal with the drought. If we don't deal with the drought, we will always be in the emergency response mode. So our long-term plan is indeed actually to help those counties come up with good programs in terms of irrigation, water harvesting, reseeding of the denuded land, reforestation, afforestation. We have started some projects in Samburu. I surely should say we don't really have big money to invest in big irrigation projects, but if the government said this is what we want to do, we have the expertise in terms of human beings who can come, advise the government, go on the drawing table, make sure that the structure meets international standards, and then the government can go on, or probably the private sector. I mean, every time we think about agricultural development, we say government, government, government. But it's the time that the private sector sees the opportunities that are in agriculture and also invest in a big way. Government alone and the UN agencies alone are not going to make a big difference. We need the private sector in the agriculture sector. Yeah.
And so as we bring this to an end, I'm just trying to look at the year 2017 alone.
Yes.
2.7 million Kenyans were classified as food insecure.
Yes.
And look at the programs that you say you're carrying out in this country, be it in Turkana, be it in Samburu, be it in Marsabit, be it in Kakamega. Very ambitious programs, one may argue. So how do you explain that in the 21st century, and with this kind of partnerships with the government and collaborations, that 2.7 million people in 2017 alone were classified as food insecure? Where is the missing link?
The missing link, mainly for Kenya here, was actually the climate change and droughts. We have looked at the rainfall figures from 2000, and you see Kenya, particularly northern Kenya, gets drought every 5 years or so. But from the drought of 2011, actually, there was no respite. There was a bit more rain in 2012 and 2013, but 2014 had less rain, 2015 had less rain. So what you see last year was a culmination of many years where the environment could not recover because there was no enough rainfall. So I think that was one. The second, and where we need to put effort, and the government is putting effort, is in food security governance. We need strategic grain reserves that can really withstand the needs of the time. So I have seen that the government is putting more money now in the strategic grain reserve because we need to have reserves beyond what the farmers have at the back of their house. I think with those two things, we can overcome food insecurity in Kenya rather soon. My message would be for every Kenyan to understand that overcoming hunger is a journey. And that since independence, actually, if you look at it, the grain production has never exceeded about 6 metric tons a year. But the population of Kenya has increased from around 6 million to nearly 50 million now. So we have many more people to feed at a time when our production hasn't really kept up to speed. And that's why I'm calling for more investment, particularly by the private sector. If we increase our production, if we increase food storage, if we reduce food waste, we can achieve food security here in Kenya.
And lastly, I know that you're marking the 40th anniversary in this country. What should we expect? That should be tomorrow?
Yeah, that will be tomorrow morning at 9. The ceremony will take place at the UN complex in Gigiri. We expect that His Excellency, the Deputy President, will grace the occasion. There are many reasons why Kenya should celebrate the achievements of FAO. First of all, we are celebrating the strong and productive partnership between FAO and the government that I talked about. We are also celebrating our partnership with many other partners. The media, you make us visible. I'm here today because you invited me.
Yes.
The academia, whose research we use to understand the situation. The civil society, who are important in implementing our projects. The local governments and the county governments. We are celebrating also the fact that if you look for many years, food insecurity in Kenya was going down until last year. So our celebration is to send the message that FAO na Kenya, kilimo ni maendeleo, wekeza kwenye kilimo. Invest in agriculture, let us be consistent, we can overcome food insecurity in this country.
Thank you very much for getting time to be with us,
Thank
Gabriel.
you.
And we want to wish you well. I want to believe that should time allow, I should make my way to that anniversary so that we celebrate together. Much appreciated for getting time to be with us.
Thank you.
And the take home here being overcoming hunger is a journey, but Kenya can do it. That's the message from Gabriel Rugaleme, who is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations to Kenya. That is, we will be also celebrating the 40th anniversary, and that will be happening at Gigiri here in Nairobi tomorrow, beginning 9. And as a country, we hope that this kind of partnerships will eventually culminate into a more food-secure country so that the many millions of Kenyans that have been facing food insecurity becomes a thing of the past. My name is Martin Mwanje on behalf of the entire production and technical crew that made this a success, and on behalf of Safina Chieng. Let's do this again tomorrow early, and that is beginning 6 a.m. in the morning. For now, we want to take that quick break. When we come back, we'll be later in a few minutes. That is bringing you some analysis with respect to the Supreme Court ruling. That's a detailed Supreme Court ruling that will be happening at the Supreme Court, and we should expect that that will be beginning at 10 this morning. In the meantime, do enjoy the rest of the programming. Bye-bye for now.